Gentlemen and friends of America, I greet you in the name of life, in the name of love, wisdom, and power, which it is your privilege to call into action to beautify and perfect yourself and your world as no thing in the world that has ever come to the understanding of mankind can do. As you are listening today, and I say this to the friends of America as well as those present, that in your privilege of calling life into action, remember you are dealing with the power of the universe, your life. You have not known this, but as you come to understand your connection with the presence of all life in its mightiest concentration of action, then you, by your determination and your attention, may call forth this concentration of life, intelligence, and power to take command of yourselves and your worlds, produce its perfection, and hold its dominion there. Only as you come to understand this full power of life, of which you are the outpicturing, that which animates your body is this life we are talking about, and that power which beats your heart, then you will understand you cannot be disconnected from it and retain your physical body. Therefore, you are connected constantly and eternally with the presence of all life. And when I say eternally, I mean just that. Could you see from our standpoint the unlimited activity of life, all that has been actually achieved within the borders of your America in the past year alone, you would rejoice with us and have the greatest encouragement in the world to go on in your call to life in its dauntless power to release that greater life, wisdom, power, and action into your world and into the requirements of America. Gentlemen, only as you reach our state someday in the future will you see how mankind have come today into an understanding of the principle, power, and action of life that they can call into action to remedy these conditions. Mankind have tried to remedy them through physical force, but I tell you it is never permanent. It is not an eternally sustained activity, but only produces temporary results. But when you call the presence and power of life into action, you are not only anchoring to that, but you are, by the power of the very life itself, which beats your heart, calling its intensification into action. If you understand thoroughly that your call to life causes to be set into action a mighty light ray, which is intelligence and energy in focused power of direction, focused upon a given objective, it will produce a definite, harmonized result and bring about divine order and divine justice. Today, in your America, divine order and divine justice are certainly needed. Therefore, if you will make this call to life, and it does not require a vast understanding of this activity of life in order to make this call, friends of America, I speak to you directly when I say this, try to make the call to life. I assure you that your presence, that focalized activity of life, which is your mighty I am presence, is above you, and its ray of light and energy beats your heart. Therefore, I say to you, if you will make the call, not with doubts and questionings, but with the sincerity and desire to find out, to have released into your body, your world of action, proof that the presence is there. There is not one in human form who cannot have that proof at their call. For after all, the presence of life that animates your body is the controlling, governing presence and intelligence of the universe once mankind come to understand it. But mankind have believed that physically they were the power, or that their physical bodies were the power, and their intellect the authority for the action of life. In that, they have been greatly mistaken. The power and presence of life acting through that intellect and human form is the power, is the authority. Therefore, gentlemen and friends of America, as you come to recognize this, you will see, at least logically, that there is no limit to the presence of life, which it is your privilege to call forth. Only as mankind still yield to the belief that they are limited and that there is cause for the pressure upon the human form and a power to limit them, will they longer experience it. I say to the fellow students, your ability is complete today in dissolving from your world at your call to the presence of life, everything that has limited you or seemed to bind you. And if you will take the full acceptance of that and no longer through the feeling, many times unknown to the intellect, give power to the conditions that seem to have been limiting in the past, you will not continue to experience them today. Therefore, I say to you, as you try this out, be firm, be determined to prove it right, rather than allow the human intellect to try to prove it wrong. For no one in the universe can prove life wrong. And that is all we are dealing with. That is all we are talking about. When you realize that mankind, in their inconceivable number of beliefs, have not contacted that which was reality, and they have met so many disappointments, still they build and build and build that human sense of limitations, which has drawn them into the condition that they find themselves in today. Now, you would perhaps think it strange when the simple word belief and mankind have used it so much. But do you know, friends of America and gentlemen, what that word will do to you? Belief is an uncertainty and is the full indication of uncertainty within the minds of mankind. With life, with us, there is no such thing as belief. It is the knowing power of life, which we are and which we are humbly endeavoring to convey to you. And in your determination and attention to life, you become that knowing power. Or, in other words, life becomes that knowing power through you, which dissolves and pushes aside, as it were, all of the human accumulation that has been what you understand as belief. But today, fast is being dissolved, this belief attitude of mankind throughout the Americas. Therefore, in the activity that has begun already in the dissolving of the human substance from the atmosphere of Earth, that sounds perhaps nebulous to you, but it is very tangible. Friends of America and gentlemen, you are dealing with substance every moment of life. And this substance has been qualified by mankind and has charged the atmosphere of the Earth, filled it, so to speak, until you are today actually moving under its pressure, unless you have understood the presence of life in order to dissolve, so far as your individual world is concerned, that which has been the pressure upon you. There have been thousands of the students today who have been able to do this, but many remain who are still feeling this sense of limitation and pressure. It only requires a little more determination and firmness upon their part to the presence of life to have it completely dissolved. Then they move forward in the presence of life without limitations, in the full confidence of their own presence of life, the owner and director of all that they require to produce happiness and perfection in their world or perfection in the human octave. Therefore, gentlemen, call to be dissolved all belief that is in your feeling world, so that the presence of life may take its command of your intellect, of your feeling world, and raise you into the full power of its action, while you still remain in the human octave within the compass of your physical body. Your physical bodies are but a garment which you are wearing, and the presence of life is the power of life, of light, of energy, of intelligence. Although mankind have believed that they were limited in the intelligence they were using, still that is not the case. The presence of life, which beats your heart, whose intelligence is without limit, stands ready and has at all times to pour the greater activity of itself into your intellect, through your body, out into your world of action, first to harmonize it. Then you stop the qualification acting from within your feeling world and allow the full power and presence of life to flow forth. It is not a hair-raising activity to call the presence of life forth, but a great, calm determination that brings the greater and greater release of life to flow forth through your body and out into your world. As you understand the need of the harmonization of your world, then you will find in your call greater and greater power and speed of action of this presence of life. The most practical thing in the universe will flow forth. Take command of your activity, your world of action. Then you will see how readily, how easily, and how perfectly it goes forth just so naturally. Gentlemen and friends of America, remember that life in itself is the most practical thing in the universe. There is nothing strange or mystical about it. But since you are breathing every moment, that is the action of life. Since your heart is beating, giving action to your body, that is the presence of life. Therefore, you need not myself nor anyone to prove to you anything, but simply to call your attention to the presence of life that is acting within you. It is not limited and lacks no intensity of itself, but through your beliefs, which I am asking you to call to be dissolved. Then you will have removed the obstruction to the full, pure, powerful outpouring of life to take command of your world of action. That is all that is required. Life in itself carries perfection, is never less in itself, and knows nothing else. But since other things have manifested in your life, they come alone through human qualification. That is an action of your feeling world, which is enveloping you. Therefore, you have been giving it attention. You've been believing that it was the condition existing and was what had prevented you from having the sufficient outpouring of life that would harmonize and produce its full perfection for you. This is the condition. It is practical, gentlemen and friends of America, the most practical thing in the world. Therefore, as you understand how to give obedience by continued harmony in your feeling world, will you find the outpicturing of it comes with greater and greater intensity each day at your call. I call to your attention the experience of the messenger to whom I am flashing these words. In 4 years, the power of intensity of the action of life flowing forth through him at his call is perhaps 50 times greater than it was 4 years ago. And the student body all realize and see that. Therefore, the momentum of life, when given the opportunity, will again take and hold its dominion through mankind, through the human form of every individual who will willingly and joyfully call it forth into action. And this is the point upon which so much hinges. Gentlemen and friends of America, you might think it's incredible that this presence of life, which gives action to your body, would not come forth of its own volition and produce its perfection for you, regardless of your outer attitude toward it. Well, the proof stands before you in mankind's limitations that something has been missing, and that is mankind's understanding that they must make their calls hourly, daily to life by the power of their attention, giving it the full authority and power to come forth and act through the human form, and therefore remove the belief that all life was just in the human form. It is, but the greater part of it is above you and flows through. And without your having cleared the channel for life to flow through your bodies, your intellect, and out into your world with a sufficient intensity, you will remain in the same conditions, gentlemen and friends of America, that you are in today. Since you have seen the change in the messengers in their great determination and intensity to call forth this blessing and perfection to mankind, then you have the evidence before you that this power of life does answer your call, does intensify its action through the human form to produce these definite mathematical results at the call of the individual. Therefore, as you stand today in your position to life, and it matters not one particle what your position is, how humble it seems to be, if you will begin today to give your attention to the presence of life that is above you, knowing its ray of light and energy beats your heart, then as you keep calling with firm determination to have more of its perfection, more of its commanding presence flow forth into your world of action, I say to you, friends of America, there is not one person living in human form who cannot prove the truth of these words to himself. If mankind will not do it themselves, they will have to do without it, because life has waited throughout the centuries for mankind to know their source, then, by their own authority, to call it into action. For gentlemen and friends of America, remember, you are the decreer of your world. You are the decreer, the determiner as to how that energy is going to act for you, which flows through your body. You cannot call it forth without it going through your body. For the majority of the action in the perfecting of yourself and your world, that energy of life has to flow through your body. Those are 2 points that must definitely be understood. You can call the light rays forth through your presence under the direction of your higher mental body to produce magnificent results. But when you come to the perfecting of your bodies and your immediate world of action and environment, that energy, gentlemen and friends of America, has to flow largely through your human form. That is how and why God does for you what God does through you. Remember that God does not act independently of your life stream so far as your individual world is concerned. God, which is the mighty I Am presence, acts at your call. Friends of America and gentlemen, remember that you, in your previous understanding of the Godhead or principle of life, or whatever you called it, divine intelligence, still is that acting only through its greater intensity at your call and by the power of your attention. You must understand this if you want to have a greater power of life flow forth to perfect your world and yourself. Therefore, as you try this out, notice from the beginning of your calls the change that will take place in your feeling world, the confidence that will come in the power and presence of that life you are speaking to. Remember, your higher mental body acting from your presence of life is an all-powerful intelligence and is not limited. As you speak to it to give you freedom, to give you supply, it sends forth its mighty light rays, which are directing intelligence to harmonize and govern conditions in the human octave that bring, through natural sources, your supply and your release from the conditions that have made you unhappy. Now, this is definite. It is powerful. All of us who have freed ourselves from the human conditions through the purifying of the physical body and drawing it into the ascension have been the authority for ages. But until I brought forth this knowledge to mankind recently, mankind have not understood. The great number of mankind in America today are profiting so greatly by this understanding, and hundreds of thousands are daily proving the truth of my words, which I have brought forth to them. It is proof to the entire world that mankind have at last contacted the true source of life and how to bring it into action. Knowing a thing is good, but to know how to apply it is still greater and more powerful. I am sure you will agree with me that I have not left one thing unexplained in the books which have been put forth through the messenger. The explanation of life, the experiences of the messenger, and why these things are true. All of these things are explained, and in the later books which carry the discourses of the great ones, these words are cups that carry the quality which they indicate into the world of the individual. And gentlemen and friends of America, let me at this moment fix your attention and your anchorage of life so firmly upon this point. You have not understood that words carry substance, carry vibration. Therefore, as you read these words of the ascended beings who are free, all-powerful, perfect beings, then their words carry the substance charged with the perfection of their world into your world for action. Please feel that every moment your attention is given to them, they are charging your world with the quality of their action, which is naturally freedom and perfection. But you have not, until this came forth, ever known that your feeling world was the power, the action that was obstructing your way. Therefore, as you go forward into the greater action of life, will you steadily and surely see and, by your own application, prove that even though you have gone on in these limitations through the many ages in which you have lived, still today, in so comparatively short a time, you can alter. Can you change? Can you rectify all those mistakes that have not been intentional, but through the lack of understanding of the presence of life? Heretofore, all that bore upon the greater understanding of life has been made more or less mysterious. Try to realize in life there is not one thing mysterious. Therefore, when you begin to feel how practical life is, you will naturally want to reach forth more and more. And let me explain to you at this point, gentlemen and friends of America, when you want something in the physical world, you reach forth your hand to accept it, do you not? Therefore, as you reach forth from your feeling world, your desire world, for your greater perfection, it is as though from the inner standpoint you reached forth your hands and drew into your feeling world that great perfection which is there before you and with which all activity of life is charged. Therefore, I ask you to try it out, to experiment in your calls to life. And if you do not succeed with the full desire in the beginning, keep on trying. In your outer world of action, if you did not succeed at first, you probably, if you wanted to succeed, would keep on trying, wouldn't you? When you were lads in school, if you gave up on something that confronted you because it was a little difficult, you did not succeed in it. Therefore, it is the same in all activity of life in its greater capacity. If you will stand firm and unyielding in your call to life, it will answer you. I tell you, friends of America and gentlemen, without exception, because it is life in itself which is the compelling power. Now, let me show you why life is not only ready, but is compelled to answer your call. What is it, gentlemen and friends of America, that makes the call? What is it that enables you to formulate the words that make the call? Is it not life? Is it not intelligence that is in life that enables you to make the call? Then after all, the conditions that are acting within life are intelligence, life, energy. Therefore, if you want more of it, you have to look where the supply is, don't you? If you wanted money in the outer world, you would not go to the garage, would you? You would probably go to a bank where it is, or to your deposit boxes. For these days, it is quite evident that mankind have ceased to hide money and place it within the earth, where they sometimes forget where to find it. Today, life is producing for you and is the treasure house of the universe. Gentlemen, please listen carefully. And friends of America, you are looking in the outer world everywhere to persons, places, conditions as your supply, when your presence of life is the only supplier that there is in this world. It uses channels, there is no question about that, gentlemen and friends of America. But look, when you make the call to life, and life is governing all channels in the physical experience of life, then the great presence of life of every one of you wants you to love each other, wants you to have the supply you require, and wants you to understand how to bring it into action and consciously bring its release. Now then, if you do not understand the operation of it, well, it would not be surprising if you did not have it. But since we have come into the full understanding of these great laws and have applied them to our freedom, we are in a position, we are the authority to convey to you that which will enable you to become the same authority we are. We came through the same process you are going through today. Therefore, if you will allow us to help you and prompt you and give you the operation of the law by which we attained, then is there any question that you would not produce the same result? But you have to feel it, gentlemen and friends of America. You have to feel the reality of these truths. You cannot just go and feel it is a social event, another peculiar activity in which you are temporarily interested. You are dealing with life, and I am endeavoring to convey to you its particular operation today. As you come to understand this, stand with the firmness that is required. If you were to come up to a stone wall or a concrete wall and you wanted to make a path through that, you would use the proper means at hand to make the opening, wouldn't you? Therefore, in life, mankind are up against this stone wall today, which is the accumulation of their own human creation. You do not realize that from the invisible standpoint, that accumulation of substance, which is yet invisible to you, can be just as firm as that stone wall. That is the position mankind are finding themselves in today. Thousands have said the same, identical words. Why is it I seem to be up against the stone wall and I know not which way to turn? In your call to the presence of life, that light ray from the presence of life will go forth before you and melt down that wall, even though it seemed as firm as a wall of stone. Therefore, I say to you, gentlemen, call forth the power of the light rays and clear the way before you. And whatever that wall of human creation has been, it will dissolve and consume it. And the pathway, the opening before you will be filled with the power of light and with the perfection of life, because in those light rays are the perfection of life and all it holds and contains for you. Therefore, I say to you, try this out if you will. If you want to be free, I say to you, friends of America, for the students know this, do not ever expect anything in the world to prove anything for you. Life has given you the opportunity throughout the centuries, and mankind today have to prove these things for themselves. We are teaching you and showing you how to do it. If you are as firm and determined as we were, you will have no difficulty in proving these great laws to yourself. And that is the only thing that amounts to anything for you. I might show you magnificent things that might be of mighty encouragement. On the other hand, it might be of less encouragement because some of the things I might produce for you might be discouraging from the fact that you might think it was so far beyond your reach. Yet it is not. Remember, everything we do, gentlemen and friends of America, is by the action of life. All the seeming so-called miracles that have ever been performed in life are the natural action of life. But so-called miracles, because they were not understood, but today in the clearing of the understanding of mankind, you have found the clearness, the power, the action of life. And as you call it into action more and more firmly, you will find the clearness of your understanding and your comprehension clearing each day until you will not only feel its reality, but by the clearness, which is the all-seeing eye of God acting through your feeling, will you see and know the reason for its action. Therefore, I say to you today, try out this law. Call to your presence of life as never before and stand unyielding, determined to have its greater perfection and action come forth through your body and into your world, and see how quickly you will prove these great laws of life in their simplicity, majesty, and power, and the blessing of their action in your life. We who have that great freedom today realize what it means. You who have not attained it yet cannot possibly know the fullness of it. But since you believe I am real, and I am saying this to the Blessed One present, since I am real, although still invisible to you, then you must understand that the power which I use to assist you is also yet invisible, but one day will become as visible and tangible as your own physical bodies, because as your physical vibratory action is lifted, raised into the clearer and greater understanding of life, then that which today is invisible to you will become as visible and tangible as your physical bodies are today. That is the natural action of life, and you have it before you in the airplane propeller and your electric fans. You see them standing still in perfectly tangible form. But in the full speed of action, you do not see them. At least you do not see the form, but you have the fullness of their action, which is the propelling power. It is so with all life. As you increase its intensity, it lifts the vibratory action of your physical structure until you see it. For instance, I say to you, friends of America, and to those gentlemen present who are students, if you saw from our standpoint the difference of their vibratory action today and 6 months ago, you would understand clearly and forever just what I am talking about. The vibratory action of those in the room, by their attention to the presence of life, is so much greater in its intensity than it was 6 months ago that to me, it's quite as tangible as your physical bodies. Therefore, in the step up, as you use the term in electrical parlance, you raise the vibratory action. That is what all of life is asking you to do today in giving your attention to life, which makes a mighty magnet. Let me draw you an illustration of how the natural activity of life, through your attention to the presence of life, operates through your physical body, therefore in your world of action. You take a magnet and put the point of it up, and you have before you the representation of the exact action of life acting through the human form. If you were to place a magnet within your physical body, points up, front and back, you would feel and see and have before you the exact illustration of that which life had intended mankind to use. That is why we have urged all mankind in their use of the energy of life to draw it down into action in the human form to the heart level, then pass it back to the presence of life, which is the cleaning, purifying activity of life. Then, in its power of reaction and return, it will make you the full power of the action of life in and through the human form. If your stream of energy flowing into the body is wasted through anger, through abnormal sex activity, or whatever it is, that releases the feeling and sends the energy down out of the physical body, and you cannot restore that. You have not returned to life that which life has given to you. Therefore, as you understand this, that your physical body is a magnet to life, drawing down its mighty currents of energy, and if understood properly, sending them back into their mighty action to life, then you will have fulfilled the action of life and returning to life that which it has given you, which will cause life to release greater and greater forces and power and substance into your world of action that will produce its exact mathematical perfection for you. All this is practical, gentlemen and friends of America. There is not one thing about the understanding of life that is not practical. That is why we, as ascended beings, are the most practical beings in the world, and why, having passed through the life experience of mankind in human forms, we understand your problems. We understand your conditions and have gained the freedom from them, and know exactly how to go about it to set you free. If you will give obedience to the few things we ask, which is not obedience to us, but obedience to your life to give you freedom, you will understand how very practical we are. Remember, gentlemen and friends of America, you have never heard me or the messengers ask your obedience to one single thing, because the only obedience mankind should give is to life. When you do give full, complete obedience to life, gentlemen, life will flood your world with every good thing. You've heard so much talk, perhaps not just recently, but in the few years past, about cooperative activity. Well, the first cooperation with anything should be with your presence of life. And unless you cooperate with your presence of life, it is impossible to cooperate harmoniously with your fellow man. Now, gentlemen and friends of America, see another practical point of this. When you give obedience to life, you are certainly, absolutely certain to give obedience to outer requirements and to give your blessings to your fellow man, because obedience to life means harmony in your feelings and towards your fellow man and the conditions which you meet in the outer world. There is no condition that warrants a fighting attitude, because that is disturbance. That is interfering with the calm serenity of your feeling world through which life flows to produce what you require. That has nothing to do, gentlemen, with firmness. You can be as firm as the rock of Gibraltar, yet your feeling world as calm as a mill pond. That is the difference between a fighting feeling in your attitude towards something you disagree with, or the feeling of calm determination to know the truth about it. That is why today, you as students of this great light are an enviable position to all mankind, because you know what life requires, and you know as you gain greater obedience to that life, it not only will, but is compelled to produce its perfection in your world of action. I want you to see today, gentlemen, how life is the compelling force in itself. Your attention to life compels life to express its greater perfection through you and in your world, because what is your attention? Life, isn't it? Then your attention to life is the compelling power that compels life to release a greater action of itself into your outer world of action through your intellect and through your human form. Therefore, I say to you, can you see anything so practical in all the world of action as that which is your own life? Gentlemen, through your stream of life that beats your heart has come everything that exists in the physical world today. You think, and many of mankind have felt very proud of their intellectual concepts, their discoveries, their perfection that they have brought forth, especially in the machinery world. But I say to you, gentlemen, every engine, every motor, every power vehicle, every manifestation of form in the physical octave today came through the stream of life and energy of some human being. It came forth as an idea. Then it was made a blueprint. Then the substance gathered to make that form complete. Whether it is an automobile, whether it is a building, a home, or whatever it is, still through that great stream of life has come the power and the energy by which all manifestation is in the physical world today. Gentlemen and friends of America, if you see this point, if you realize what it means, then you will understand that you are not one of you, any longer limited in the greater intensity of that perfection of life, which you can call forth to manifest in your individual world. I want you to see that, if you will. It is very practical, and it is the mightiest truth in the universe. There is not one thing, there is no human being that can deny it. Therefore, assert your dominion, gentlemen, in your attention to life. Know that there is not one thing that can longer stand before you in the mighty power of its action and its perfection, which it will pour forth and flood your world of action with. To know that this presence is there is beautiful. But to command by the presence of life, its all-powerful action to take charge of your body and world is still a greater action and the completion of the action and call to life. Therefore, as you stand today in the fullness of your life, and think of it, gentlemen and friends of America, you stand today in the presence of life just as you always have stood. Think of it, and yet you have not understood how to accept the greater fullness of life which you can have at any moment. Gentlemen and friends of America, life does not limit you. Energy does not limit you. Intelligence does not limit you. Then what has happened? Mankind's belief in outer powers has caused them to limit themselves and nothing else. Therefore, as you turn to life, give all you are back to life. Then will life pour all of itself into your body and into your world of action. Then shall you see the great blessing which life is always holding for you. Only when your attention goes back home to life will you feel the fullness and the practical action of it that will bring that great blessing into your world. Remember, you who are compelled to choose what you are going to do with this energy. If you waste it in destructive activities, then you cannot have it for the constructive thing. If you want to have the constructive activity of life, you will pass the currents of energy back to life. Then see how life will produce its perfection in your body, through your body, and in your world of action in all its practical powers that the outer world calls practical today. In your mechanics, there is not one thing more practical than life itself, for what has produced your mechanics? What has produced all things today? What has produced this piano and all these things? Life. Therefore, gentlemen, think how practical life is. You're not dealing with anything uncertain. You are not dealing with anything that life cannot produce for you. If there is any feeling in your world of life being mysterious, of that which you have been expressing so far being mysterious, please dismiss it. Oh, I want you to be so free in this mighty application of life. And since we are doing certain preparatory work for you this coming class, gentlemen, enter in with all the joy and happiness at your command. Do not think I am unaware of your magnificent action, your magnificent power, energy, and substance released during the 6 months that the messengers have been away. Feel my gratitude to every one of you for every ounce of energy you have released for the blessing and the protection of America. I know it's not easy to comprehend unless you saw from our standpoint all that is required. But I tell you, gentlemen, it is magnificent what has been accomplished. Seeing what has been accomplished in the past 6 months, then can any of you tell me what can be accomplished in the coming 6 months? Oh, think of it. Think of it, gentlemen, in the great struggle. And I use that word appropriately on this occasion because you have seen your own physical struggles in the endeavor to draw forth the greater perfection of life, and you have not succeeded as much as you would like. But I tell you frankly that in the condition that has been removed from your America and from your world of action, will you find it easier and easier to bring forth the answer to your cause. I want you to feel that your application is invincible. It is, gentlemen. Don't yield to any other thought or feeling. And if you have not had the full answer to your application you would like, be firmer. Be more determined to have it. Whatever there is in your world of accumulation, with that greater firmness and determination, you will beat down that wall and shatter it completely until the fullness of life flowing forth through and into your world will find no obstruction, will find no requalification. That is why in this coming class, it will be the greatest ever in the experience of the messengers or yourselves, because enormous preparation from our standpoint is being made. We are determined, as the Goddess of Light told those in Long Beach, with your complete cooperation with us to free every earnest, sincere student from every financial limitation that has ever beset him or her. Gentlemen, why do I refer to this financial activity? Well, I am not materially minded, that is certain. But you know, and I know that complete ease cannot come and does not come. It is not that it could not come, but it ordinarily does not come to mankind without a certain sense of financial freedom. While you are standing, gentlemen, don't mind it for a few minutes, because I want to charge the currents of energy through your bodies and your feeling worlds to endeavor to help you to free yourselves from this feeling that any condition in the outer world can limit you. Please do not accept that thing any longer. I tell you, gentlemen, it cannot do it. There is no set of circumstances in the world of human creation that can longer limit you if you will only throw it aside. Feel and know your power of life that flows through your body and beats your heart is the dominion in your life at your call. And please feel that there is no person, place, or condition that can interfere with you or limit you. I know mankind have been so charged with that unhappy belief that persons, places, or conditions could limit them. Well, it is not true. It certainly does have an appearance, but it is not true. Therefore, as you say to yourself constantly, why it is ridiculous that there is anything that could limit anything in my acceptance of my great presence of life, which is the governing intelligence of the universe. It is not true, and I refuse acceptance of it. Do that in your feeling, gentlemen. Oh, don't try to do these things with just the intellect, because it is only partially done. But when you follow up your action of the intellect with your feeling, it becomes the commanding presence of life acting through your physical body, and it will repel everything that is limiting you, whether it is persons, places, or conditions. I say to you that you have seen the messengers overcome the most seemingly gigantic obstacles of human conditions that were ever poured forth to human beings, and they do not affect them. You must see this. Therefore, it is proof to you, gentlemen, that what I have given you is true. If they can do it, so can you. They are the proof to the whole world that they do surmount these obstacles and have released the energy of life that goes forth to produce these conditions. Gentlemen, I wish for 10 minutes you could see from our standpoint the conditions that have taken place and the answers to the messengers' calls during the past 6 months. Hundreds of instantaneous answers to their calls have come forth for the individuals in these conditions. Gentlemen, one moment while you are standing, I want you to realize that these conditions of the outer world have no power over you. You must know that definitely. Remember when the messengers were here before in the last shrine class, the most diabolical attempt was made before those black magicians were seized to spread over mankind the uncontrollable sex desire, and people who had not been touched by it for years found it demanding action. That has largely disappeared and will disappear more and more as that substance is dissolved and consumed from the earth. Now then, the last lash of those, well, there is only one thing to call them, gentlemen, those fiends who sought the destruction of mankind. The last lash of that was to throw financial fear over the entire people of America. I say to you, students of the light, don't yield to that appearance. Don't yield to it. Stand with greater firmness than ever in your life and say, I refuse acceptance of that thing. Mighty I am presence, you are my treasure house, and you govern all channels in this universe and in the world. In America is a limitless abundance of money and everything that everyone in America requires today. Therefore, that shall be held in divine order and divine distribution among the people of America. Stand firm and unyielding in that. There are no people in your government, no people in official places that have authority or power to deprive mankind any longer of their supply of money they require for use. Please be seated. Every one of you individually who might feel a greater financial pressure or limitation, say to that thing, you lie. You are not true. Therefore, you have no power. Get out of my world. Mighty I am presence, charge and fill my world with the limitless supply of money from your treasure house, and I refuse acceptance of anything else. Gentlemen, as you take that firm stand, you will find everything in the outer world yielding to that release of the money supply you require. I tell you, gentlemen, that this thing shall cease. It shall not affect these beloved students. Since life is offered and gives everything now that it has to the earnest individual who will give undivided attention to it, then tell me, is there any condition in the outer world that can affect or deprive you of anything you require in the service of the light? Remember, gentlemen, every condition that has ever existed in the world in opposition to the students of the light has been reversed. Therefore, I say to you, gentlemen, in your determination to your presence of life, if you feel a little added pressure, call to some one of us. We are your friends, and if I do say it, the greatest friends you ever had. Now then, gentlemen, every one of us who wants to help you knows how to manipulate these laws to do it. Will you do us the kindness to make your firmness most powerful application? Then turn to us and say, blessed ones, I am doing my utmost. Now give me the assistance in my feeling world to bring about this release. And by George, it will be done. Thank you, gentlemen. I actually believe that you are feeling my reality. Well, I am determined to prove to you, every one of you, how very real I am. Not only that, but I tell you, when we have gained the accomplishment this far, do you think I will not reach into the heart of all that is to bring forth the assistance to you blessed ones, that you may have the victory of life? It is one thing to have a good weather friend, but it is far more to have a friend in stormy weather. And remember, I am your stormy weather friend. Don't let anything frighten you, gentlemen. It doesn't make any difference how much the wolf howls around your environment. You know how to bring forth that light ray that will shut up that howl. Remember, gentlemen, your greatest weapon in this universe today, or that ever will be, is the power of those mighty light rays called forth from your presence under the direction of your higher mental bodies. Gentlemen, won't you please feel today your higher mental body who supplies energy to your body, who operates every organ in your body? You don't think about it, do you? Unless something gets out of order. You just accept it. And the higher mental body does operate every organ in your body. Of course, if you were harmonious enough, every organ would operate perfectly. Just think of it. If all conditions, all the organs in your body were acting normally, you would never have an abnormal appetite. Think of it. You know how hungry you get sometimes? Well, that might seem natural. You may have taken unusual physical exercise, but gentlemen, let me assure you, that is the cry of the atomic structure in your body through habit. The day I found in my experience of long ago, of course, it is a long time since I ate and long before my ascension, I often said to my associates, has any man ever seen me eat? I would not advise you to go without eating, but to govern or control abnormal appetites is a desirable thing. When you call the greater harmony, power, and action of your presence to govern your physical body, then will these abnormal desires dissolve and disappear. I ask you, gentlemen, because now in preparation and during this class, we are entering into very definite, powerful action. If you should feel a great desire for food, please govern it and just say, hold on now. You just take it easy. And govern putting too much food in your stomach during this time and the remainder of this class. Don't go hungry. I don't mean that at all. But govern the amount of food so you are in the best condition possible for the perfect activity which we are bringing into action in this class. There has never been anything like it. We began the work the other night in Long Beach and will continue this in the group meetings before the class begins. Gentlemen, I am going to ask you, I seldom do ask a favor, but during this shrine class, with every one of you, take it upon yourselves to watch throughout the audience and call the usher's attention to disturbance of any kind, so that any person who comes in just solely to create disturbance may be removed quickly. We want to do a great work, and we do not want people to come in just to try to create disturbance or ridicule or anything of that kind, because if they do that, they don't belong there. We are going into definite action, so if you will make yourself a committee of one to watch and stand guard over that thing so that it will be governed, we will appreciate it tremendously, and you will be the beneficiaries of all that comes through. I do not ask you to be unreasonable with anyone, but stand guard and watch that the greatest possible harmony is maintained in this class. In Washington, I surprised the messenger very much by clearing out those who refused to give obedience in the audience. I will admit they were surprised too, but I tell you, the body of students now is great enough that people should understand that unless they come, we do not ask them to accept it, but they should at least come in kindly and harmonize themselves. That is all we ask. Everyone who will do that is so welcome, but the vicious individuals must be kept out of this class if I have to go out and hunt them out myself, for we wish to do a work never before attempted. Will you please understand that, and with the fullness of your great love and kindness, accept that into your world? Gentlemen, it is the greatest thing in the universe to have us who are your friends, who know how to govern these laws of life, to project into your feeling world that substance, that governing, commanding presence of life, which you need today to give you the assistance required. Well, mankind would be helpless, gentlemen, without us. You may not see that or understand it, but I assure you there is not 1 out of 100,000 in America or the world today that can govern their feeling world sufficiently long enough to let the perfection of life come forth without our assistance. As the substance of earth discordantly qualified by mankind is dissolved and consumed, then that will be a tremendous universal help to individuals. And that is why our gratitude is so very great to you, gentlemen, in your gratitude and love that pour forth to us and the messengers. I am going to say something in closing today. We have never mentioned, but you have seen how the messengers in their great outpouring of divine love have called forth the divine love from within individuals. You all have seen that. Never in the history of the earth has such great power of divine love been poured forth to any individual as has been to those 2 messengers, and no one has ever received such great hate by a few, but that is very small in comparison with the great divine love that is poured forth. Gentlemen, could you see the cause of that? Then you would know that love is releasing you steadily and surely from everything that has bound you throughout the centuries. You, of course, must watch out that you do not qualify that outpouring of divine love with human desires. That power in its blessing to mankind is the greatest privilege of mankind today. Therefore, as you keep releasing greater and greater power of its action, you have swung wide the doors to your mighty I Am presence, to its mighty intelligence, to its treasure house, to fill your world with every good thing you require. Please, gentlemen, carry that with you today, the firm determination, the firm command from this moment forward. Not one thing of the human world, of human creation, can limit you in any sense. Take your firm, determined stand in that, and I will assure you, you will agree with me ere long that I have told you the truth. I am going to stand by you until you find that freedom. Remember again, persons, places, conditions, or positions, employment positions, have nothing to do with your supply. You have been prone to believe that you have had to have a certain kind of position, but your presence of life, as the mighty directing intelligence, will place you in your right activity, and there is not anything that can say no to you under the direct power of your presence. Please feel it is the authority, and whatever the outer conditions of mankind are manifesting, still they have no authority over your world, over you. Won't you feel that? I thank you with all my heart for the clear comprehension that is within you today. I know you all feel that greater firmness, that greater determination, and that greater clearness of comprehension of these simple laws, which will enable you to set them into action with a firm power and determination that brooks no interference from any source whatsoever. That is what I want you to feel. I am going to be with you very much more in this class, since I have accomplished much I had desired in Europe and have greater freedom from that requirement now. Then I shall be with you every day, and we shall carry out this determination of today. I thank you and bless you with the fullness of the perfection of life. Thank you so much.